Retreat, Southern Invaders by Rob Herber. It was 1939, in the first week of my sabbatical from Miskatonic University, when I decided to visit my old friend Augusta London. Augusta lived in an ancient mansion on an island in Dove's Bay, which was only accessible by boat. As I ferried across the cold water and caught my first glimpse of my friend's home through the surrounding forest, I walked silently up the path that led from the boathouse, where I was dropped off, to the old mansion. I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched. I dismissed my nervousness to the environment and finally made it to the home's front door. I knocked and was let in by Augusta's large manservant named Hex. Hex took my bags and motioned me into Augusta's study. When I entered the small study/library, I was surprised to find it unoccupied. Augusta was not there to meet me, even though I had sent word of my arrival. I soon found a note on her desk addressed to me.
Sorry I'm not there, old chap. Business to attend to and all that.
The thought of Augusta's business made me shudder. For as long as I had known her, she had been a hunter of things that go bump in the night. I moved over to her bookcase in the room to try and take my mind off Augusta's danger, but soon realized that all of her collection of books involved the supernatural in some way. From her heavy volume of the Necronomicon to the strange contents of her version of the Riley text, it all reminded me of her doings that night. A great weight lifted from me when I heard Augusta's familiar voice in the hallway.
Hex, I really could have used your help tonight. Beast nearly got me.
Augusta ceased talking when I entered the hallway, but she soon welcomed me to her abode with dinner. Later, when we had finished our meal, we retired to the study for some cigars and brandy. I told her of an odd experience I had up north in a small village in Canada concerning a wild beast who lived in the forest and nearly killed me by flinging me into Lake Erie, and she was very interested.
You sure you don't want to go back up there to deal with this nasty, with Hex and I in tow?
It had meant me no harm.
You call dumping you in the middle of Lake Erie no harm? The thing is dangerous, and we should be the ones to deal with it for good. Ah, but I see by your expression that you are set in your ways, so I'll drop the subject.
The rest of the evening went uneventfully as we had talked about more mundane things, and I soon excused myself so that I could get some sleep. I settled down to begin a warm summer's rest, feeling that I could sleep the remainder of the night away. Sometime later I realized that a good night's sleep was exactly what I would not be having. I heard a large commotion downstairs and quickly went to investigate. As I hurried down the mansion's staircase, a shot rang out from below. My thoughts were of a burglar, but when I entered the hall area it became apparent that the situation was much worse than that. Augusta lay sprawled on the floor, and at her feet a corpse of a half-man, half-beast had been felled as if in mid-leap.
Good shot, Hex. Silver buckshot to the chest is only surefire way to dispose of the loup-garou.
Hex lifted Augusta to a standing position with one hand and held a shotgun with the other.
Sorry about this. I usually try to keep my work away from home. This werewolf must have some connection to the one I killed on the island earlier. Very disturbing. Oh well, I'll think about it in the morning. Good night.
With that, she passed me and headed upstairs to her bedroom. I turned dumbfounded to Hex, who just shrugged and took the dead thing's remains away. I slept very little the rest of the night. I awoke the next day exhausted and slept longer than I usually would have. When I eventually got out of bed and went downstairs, I found I was alone in the house. Breakfast was still hot in the kitchen, so I ate and waited for my friend to return. Augusta and Hex came back quite despondent as they told me of what they found.
Do you realize what we found out there?
Augusta's voice contained a sense of fear and anger as she explained the multitude of strange tracks they had found on the island.
You must prepare the house for the attack that will be coming. Come, we'll make the study our sanctuary.
Augusta, Hex, and I had spent the rest of the day fortifying the house, especially the study. When we had finished, it was dark and we resigned to wait for the things to make the first move. Why don't we just leave the island?
I will not be scared off my land.
Eventually I nodded off, leaving Hex guarding the study door and Augusta watching a hidden passage she had built behind one of the bookshelves. Once again I awoke with a start. Gunshots rang out and I was up on my feet before my eyes had opened. The creatures were attacking. I only saw slight glimpses of the besiegers, but it was enough. I fired the revolver Augusta had given me at the hordes that had showed through the windows. My ammunition was expended quickly, while Augusta and Hex were more careful with their shots. The creatures still came and all looked lost.
Take the hidden passage. Hex and I will hold them as long as we can.
I had no real choice but to go. The earthen passage led to an exit in a nearby forest, and I made it down the pitch-black tunnel without trouble. The sound of muffled gunfire rang down from behind, and I prayed that Augusta and Hex would make it out. I exited the passage into the cool night air and found the full moon provided enough light for me to see my way. I hurried towards the boathouse where I would prepare to leave and wait for my friends. The trip was quick and I ran into the shack that first provided shelter for the boats and then me. As I entered the dilapidated boathouse, I was immediately submerged in darkness. I groped for a lamp but stopped when I heard the voice.
"Come into my parlor," said the spider to the fly.
My blood froze. I turned towards the source of the voice and a weak light was lit. The voice turned into a creature whose dark humanoid form suggests formlessness, and this is where I lost consciousness. When I next returned to the horror that is reality, I found that my arms were being held down by two creatures not unlike the one Hex shot the night before.
"Nice to see you're awake. I'm sure you're wondering why you're still alive. You, my friend, are the proverbial cheese in a mousetrap."
The dark creature had a look of amusement in his rather featureless face. I hoped Augusta had more sense than to come for me. She faced a fate worse than death. The door suddenly swung open, and the dark creature's head pivoted in surprise as Augusta and Hex walked fearlessly in. My jaw dropped as Augusta talked.
Doctor, nice to see you again. I should have known it was you behind all this.
"London, I can't say the same about you. I'd hope my pets had finished you."
I didn't register the rest of the conversation between the two because I was trying to fathom where the two had met before. I was thrust back into reality as Augusta drew her revolver and Decatur laughed.
"What are you gonna do? Shoot me? You of all people should know that guns are useless against me."
If I learned one thing from our last meeting, it was that guns don't kill demons. Guns that shoot bullets that have been blessed kill demons.
Decatur's face showed genuine fear at the mention of holy bullets. Augusta fired at the demon, but its supernatural speed won out. Decatur grabbed one of his nearby minions and used it as a shield. The bullet ripped through the thing's chest before Augusta could fire again. All the creatures sprang into action. The old boathouse was turned into a charnel house as half man, half beasts yelped as they were struck down. The remaining creatures were efficiently dealt with, and soon Augusta and Hex were standing alone with smoking guns before Decatur. Hex leveled his shotgun and pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. It was empty. Augusta then pointed her pistol at the demon, but once again the thing's speed won out. With inhuman agility, Augusta had her pistol knocked from her grasp. Decatur laughed as he held Augusta's throat with one claw and Hex's with the other. Slowly he tightened his grip on their necks. My instincts took over and I lunged for Augusta's fallen weapon. As I fired, the bullet escaped from the barrel of the gun and exploded into Decatur's back. He let out one last howl that would scare the gods, and then he was gone. Later, after reaching the house and having more than one drink, I asked Augusta where she had met the demon called Decatur before.
Well, my friend, Dicto and I have mutually hateful relationship. Much like you have now with him, actually. I sent him back to where he came from, and he tried to return the favor. Now he'll be back for the both of us.
Augusta saw my intake of breath as I heard for the first time that I actually hadn't killed Decatur permanently, and she smirked.
No, you didn't kill him, but I wish you better luck next time.